Let's take a look at a recent video by Earthling Ed and see what fun we can have exploring the depths of vegan tomfoolery.
So in today's video, we are going to be discussing the absolutely bewildering shambles, which is the new Got Milk campaign video, which stars everybody's latest celebrity disappointment, Aubrey Plaza.
Never heard of her. Must be living under a rock because this is also the first I'm hearing of the ad campaign.
But to do so, I want to go back to the origins of this particular story, back to the 13th century. Because back then, a Baghdadi cookery book did the unforgivable and changed the world forever. Little did the author of this book know, but they just set into motion a series of events that would reverberate around the world for centuries to come. They made the first known reference to an ingredient they called almond milk. Upon publication, bazaars and markets up and down the Middle East became overwhelmed by confusion. Panic ensued, and so the best minds of their time set about attempting to lactate almonds, but to no avail. How could this mysterious ingredient exist if there was no almond anus for an almond farmer to force their arm into, or almond uterus for them to inject the almond semen they'd forcibly taken from a male almond's testicles? Because if there's one thing we all know,
mammaries and teats, that's where milk comes from, period.
I guess the idea here is to highlight the history of almond milk. I guess I can understand the complaint if it's why worry about it now, but I guess the dairy industry is trying to protect their own self-interests. I also find it funny how vegans will criticize people for drinking animal milk, yet they don't find it strange that people would drink nut water or bean water. Humans are mammals, so the idea of us drinking another mammal's milk is the least strange thing to me, especially because of how nutritious it can be, particularly in its raw form. I would also like to highlight how silly it is for vegans to diminish milk to simply a beverage. Of course, there is also cream, which is highly nutritious, but there are other products that are incredibly good for us, such as butter, yogurt, and cheese. For people who live in areas of the world where they don't have access to meat, a pregnant animal is a really great way for them to get much needed nutrition. I see that it was ever necessary, I see that it is ever necessary, and I see that it, in and of itself, can be life-sustaining. Plant-based milks, on the other hand.
flash forward 800 years, and these questions are still being asked. But now, 800 years later, the FDA have ruled that plant milks can actually be called milk in the US, because, in all seriousness, consumers are more intelligent than dairy farmers want them to be, and know that soy milk is made from soybeans.
It's all good and well that people know that soy milk is made from soybeans and that almond milk is made from almonds. There's another problem, and it's especially bad in plant-based circles.
I made another video before that you probably seen. It was the hemp milk baby formula. I made that years ago after I had my son. I was looking for like a vegan, healthy alternative to give my son outside of just giving him breast milk all the time.
What's up, mom and dads? As you all know, there's a shortage on infant and baby formula. So if you want to make your own at home, here's the recipe from Dr. Seabay.
You go to the grocery store and you observe all these new milks coming out, soy milk and rice milk, and you're like, wow, that's probably really healthy. Not for kids, okay? Not for small infants especially. What can happen, it can create very severe deficiencies, okay? B12, vitamin B2, vitamin D, vitamin A, but especially DHA and EPA.
This is the type of thing I think about when I think of the deception of calling a plant-based milk a health food or considering it a good alternative to animal milk. If you want to say in response to this that this is just some people who are not particularly bright, I find it kind of ironic, judging from the fact that it's precisely these types of people that fall for vegan propaganda such as that which Ed promotes.
But still, the dairy industry complains. In fact, the only thing the dairy industry likes more than complaining is fisting cows. And ironically, the nuttiest part of this whole fiasco is not the almond milk, but in fact the dairy industry itself.
Stephanie, how did they finagle their way to get the FDA to call nut juice milk?
Well, I'll tell you right now, I think there's an agenda out there for cleaning the planet, and they have made agriculture the center of the problem, and they have pointed fingers at agriculture for many years now, and that has gained an opportunity for alternatives to come into our markets and come into our homes.
Oh my god, plant milks are coming into our homes because of an agenda to make the planet more sustainable. Let's just set the record straight. Oats are not these horrifying home invaders, unless I've just got a bad case of jumbo-rolled Stockholm syndrome.
Maybe it's because Ed isn't from America, but finding a Fox News channel and getting surprised by the fear-mongering way that they report their stories is kind of funny. Also, there's something that occurs to me when I listen to vegans try to say that the things they promote are meant to be better for the environment. I mentioned before that milk is a naturally occurring thing. We sometimes use methods to increase production, but nature is still pretty much taking care of the rest. On the other hand, you have a completely unnecessary crop that we have to continuously make land for and grow that's incredibly water hungry, and that, despite having some claimed health benefits, also contains toxins which people should be concerned with consuming in large amounts. When I hear things like that, I feel it pretty much cancels out the need for or promotion of the product. Cows are here and we need them. We downright depend on them. Almonds, on the other hand, we can miss. Also, when it comes to these plant-based items, one of the things I look for is not only is it good for me, but how could it be bad for me and is it worth the bad things? So when you sit here promoting oats as though they're not bad, I have to question that. Maybe the reason why we get bloated and gassy when we eat them is because it's something our body doesn't like. I know I don't get bloated and gassy when I eat animal products, so I don't feel like I'm punishing myself when I eat those foods. As we all know, pain and discomfort is a great indication that something is good for you and that you should keep doing it more and more. Look, I did the sarcasm.
Faced with the reality that plant milks can be called milk, the dairy industry needed to fight back. So they enlisted the help of someone you would absolutely most definitely associate with drinking dairy, Aubrey Plaza.
I don't know or care who she is, and I just find this so bizarre.
Aubrey obviously didn't get the memo that it's not the 90s anymore and has accepted money to appear in a Got Milk campaign to try and convince people that breastfeeding from an entirely different species is definitely not weird or creepy.
What is his definition of weird and creepy? Because I'm pretty sure, as I mentioned before, there are places in the world in which this is saving people's lives. It was never weird for us to scavenge food and try to figure out which foods are good for us and which foods are poisonous. It's never weird for us to latch on to the foods we think are doing us good and dismiss the foods we think are not doing us good. Of course, the quality of the milk we get today is nothing like that we could get in the wild or in otherwise unprocessed forms. Along with that, though, there's risk of getting sick from whatever might be in the milk. I also mentioned before that milk is not just a beverage, and the types of foods we can make from it are incredibly nutritious. And they are nutritious on their own. Not only do nut milks and soy milk usually have to be fortified, they contain anti-nutrients that inhibit absorption. For people who live in areas where meat is not cheap or is too lean, dairy products can be a relatively affordable way to get a good dose of fat along with proper human nutrition. Even if you want to argue that there's something bad about animal milk, if I compare them to nut milk, it's no contest. And either we're going to be drinking some kind of quote-unquote milk or we're not. So you can drink your nutritionally bankrupt, environmentally unfriendly slop, and I'll have my mammal milk.
Have you ever looked at a tree and thought, can I drink this? I did. Hi, I'm Aubrey Plaza, co-founder of Wood Milk, the world's first and only milk made from wood. Here's how wood milk is born. Not born, exactly. More like squished into a slime that's legal to sell. Let's give it a try. Got wood? Is wood milk real? Absolutely not. Only real milk is real. Then what did I invest in?
Okay, so for somebody like me, a relatively inoffensive ad that looked well produced, but that doesn't really make me feel any way about plant-based milks or real milk at all. I probably would have seen it and shrugged, or else not have had any reaction at all.
Oh, now I get it. Aubrey Plaza is doing her shtick. You know, the one that I'm a relatable, droll, sarcastic, and monotonal person who will also sell out for blood money.
Oh, are we teasing people now? Because the fidgeting and the hand motions are incredibly distracting, as is the awkward head tilt and the condescending tone without an ounce of charisma or intelligence to back it up. But it's your shtick, and I guess some people like it. I couldn't fathom why, though.
You see, the dairy industry is trying to be satirical. Of course, wood milk isn't real. The animal farming industries have cut down all the trees.
Even if it were true that dairy companies cut down trees to make room to graze farm animals, it isn't without saving graze. The problem isn't clearing land to make room to graze animals. The problem is overpopulation. We may have more mouths than we are able to feed. I'm not an antinatalist by any stretch of the imagination, but when it comes to unsustainability, I understand the problem. However, I don't see the procurement of space for ruminant animals, especially not those who will later be slaughtered so that we can consume their meat, as a problem at all. Humans need to eat and they ought to be well fed.
Oh, but you don't have to worry about that anymore because actually the Got Milk campaign has a solution to that problem. You see, Got Milk have teamed up with One Tree Planted to plant 10,000 trees as part of the campaign. You want satire? That's the satire. The animal farming industries are the leading drivers of deforestation. The dairy industry trying to look good by offering to plant 10,000 trees is the equivalent of someone setting your home on fire and then trying to redeem themselves by giving you a watering can to try and put the fire out with. And on top of that, the advert was released during Earth Week. Yes, that's right, Earth Week. We have reached peak absurdity. One of the leading drivers of the climate crisis is being promoted during Earth Week with a campaign where they're going to plant 10,000 trees.
I just find it so patently absurd that this guy is getting triggered over any company on this planet doing any kind of underhanded tactic and trying to make themselves look good while ignoring all the problems that they cause. Are you going to do anything about it? Oh, I guess Ed's way of doing something about it is hawking a book, which, you do you. If you're making money off of gullible people who will swallow whatever you spurt out, then who can blame you, right? I guess it's better to make a YouTube video where you whinge about problems you're doing literally nothing to resolve, while at the same time being the pot calling the kettle black and ragging on a company and their empty gestures while you are the epitome of empty gestures.
And through One Tree Planted, you only pay $1 per tree. So in other words, the dairy industry, a multi-billion-dollar industry, is contributing a measly $10,000 to reforesting. The dairy industry trying to convince people that they're not responsible for environmental degradation by donating money to help plant trees is the equivalent of Ghislaine Maxwell donating $50 to an anti-human trafficking charity.
I haven't a clue who that person is either, but I guess it was a zing. I don't necessarily disagree with Ed here, but I can't help but feel like it was a slow news week. Whatever. I can't say I'm not scraping the bottom of the barrel by responding to this video.
Honestly, if this whole campaign was a parody of the dairy industry, I would think it had been taken too far. I mean, just read this from their website. Our trees are grown in biodiverse, eco-friendly, artisanal, regenerative, free-range wood forests.
Looks like marketing 101. It's as plain as day. You can almost bet if a company says something like that, they actually mean the exact opposite. Kind of like when any plant-based company promotes its food as good or healthy for you or nutritious or a proper replacement for real animal products.
That is literally a parody of what the dairy industry says about cow's milk. They are mocking themselves by highlighting the frivolous and disingenuous ways in which they market their own products. But back to Aubrey, because ironically, when asked about her morning routine in 2012, she stated this: "My brain does not work until I've had at least 2 or 3 shots of espresso from my Nespresso machine with the little pods. It's pretty great. I usually make a double, sometimes triple almond milk latte."
Did he really find something like from over a decade ago to nitpick about? An off quote from somebody who may or may not have been living an entirely different lifestyle 6 months from when they made the quote, let alone after 10 years. Also, the fact that this guy is pointing out that a celebrity may endorse a product that they themselves don't drink or eat or use like it's news. For me, it's just such old news and it just means nothing.
And hang on a minute, shouldn't that be an almond nut juice latte, Aubrey? Or did you only stop calling almond milk milk once the dairy industry check had cleared?
I like the zoom in, like he thought it was really poignant. Him pointing out something that ubiquitous as though it's earth-shattering news.
But seriously, Aubrey was actually drinking almond milk before it was cool. Anyway, people have not been impressed with her for agreeing to be involved in this, and the comment section for the post of this video on her Instagram was filled with people discussing their disappointment. So Aubrey listened to the criticism, looked into the issue herself, and vowed to never drink cow's milk again. Just kidding, she turned off the comments. You see, that's the thing about making Faustian pacts with unethical and morally reprehensible industries. It's pretty hard to defend yourself beyond just admitting that what you have done was done for entirely selfish reasons.
Oh my god, the projection. Literally everything this guy does is for selfish reasons, and he tries to hide behind veganism like it's a shield or something. It's not, and it's quite easy to see through even if it was.
And this whole argument about real milk is just so boring. I don't want to drink the milk produced by a lactating mother because I'm not 6 months old anymore. I've been weaned. Why are adults so determined to sexually exploit cows just so we can then guzzle down their lactations?
For the reasons aforementioned in this video, but I will restate one more time. The only reasons why I would drink something like soy milk or almond milk is either as a replacement for real milk, falsely assuming it's nutritious, or because I want something tasty and a creamy substance helps me achieve that. We drink milk for the same reason most people would drink a plant-based milk. So can we please stop acting like it's the weirdest thing on the planet when it's actually not? And for the last time, milk is not just a beverage. Milk can be used to make other nutritious products that are good for the human body. Properly sourced, the environmental impact is either negligible or positive, as opposed to an always negative result for something as poisonous as a nut drink or a bean drink. What is the acceptable amount of negative environmental impact from something that is completely superfluous in the person's diet, that's also slowly poisoning them the more they consume it? I wonder.
I don't care if soy milk is technically not real milk. I care about people no longer slaughtering and butchering mothers and their babies. And one of the most ironic arguments that dairy advocates wheel out is that plant milks are mainly water. But guess what else is? Cow's milk. In fact, it's nearly 90% water. So whenever you hear dairy farmers try to dismiss plant milk by saying it's mainly water, remember they're actually criticizing their own industry.
I was going to insert a comment about why he felt it was necessary to pinpoint something that sounds so ridiculous that it's difficult to believe anybody actually said it. But then I realized I'm responding to an Earthling Ed video, which means I'm doing the exact same thing. Touché.
But I want to finish with what must be one of the finest own goals yet from someone trying to support the dairy industry. Wisconsin Senator Tammy Baldwin posted the definition of milk in defense of dairy farmers. It reads, an opaque white fluid rich in fat and protein secreted by female mammals for the nourishment of their young. And I totally support that definition, which is why when cows are left to produce milk for the nourishment of their young, well then I'll start calling soy milk soy juice. But until then, the dairy industry can keep crying over spilt plant-based milk.
And mic drop. Sorry I subjected you to this video if you hadn't already seen it. But there's an important takeaway here. It'll be the same takeaway from any video I make moving forward responding to vegan ideologues. It's all rhetoric. It's literally all rhetoric and no action. The action that's taken is usually for personal benefit. The moment a vegan admits they hate animals and they dream about killing animals every day, yet they refrain from doing so because they feel it's wrong morally, then that's when I'll start giving a vegan any credit. But if they're just in it for the money, like some people who shall remain nameless, or if they're just in it to make themselves feel better for being human, it's all selfishness and self-serving behavior in the end. I don't see it as any different from the dairy farmers. I don't see him as any different from the actress in the ad either. She collected her check and moved on. And so too will Ed collect his check and move on. The rest of the video is him promoting his book. A really good waste of paper and resources.
The only thing I can think of to use these things for is to wipe your ass with it! You might as well save that toilet paper. It's worth a whole lot more.
Digital books are a thing, you know, but whatever. We can't all be perfect, I guess. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Comments, constructive criticism, and suggestions are all welcome. And as always, be having a good day.